Hello, my name is Matthew Weber, and today I would like to talk with you about my personal behavior management style, and also to go over with the interest inventory that I have devised to be used in my music appreciation class. I'll also touch briefly on classroom rules and review the rules that I have established for my own classroom for this upcoming school year. In order to help engage my students and gather a working knowledge of their likes and dislikes, I have created an interest inventory to be distributed on the first day of school. So one may ask, why use an interest inventory? It all stems around respect, in my opinion. It shows the students that I respect their likes and dislikes enough to attempt to consider them and incorporate them into the daily learning process. It shows these students that I'm not obsessed with classical music, and I have no intention of forcing them to study and listen to classical music every day in class. On the next slide, we will go over the actual questions of this particular interest inventory that I have come up with. A functional interest inventory asks questions that are essential in getting to know your student as well as their connection to the content area. It is important that the inventory allows students to give creative answers that are not all yes or no, and truly helps you as the teacher to understand them. Additionally, I find that it is important to end an interest inventory with an open-ended question, allowing them to freely and without recourse voice any concerns and simply tell me anything I may need to know about them. The goal of the interest inventory is to walk away with a better knowledge of the likes and dislikes of your student body, armed with the necessary information to form effective plans and reach those students on their level. I know this screen is hard to read, but this is the specific interest inventory for my music appreciation class that I intend to administer to my students on Monday when we're all together again. As we progress to the next slide, though, I will highlight each individual question. In designing this particular interest inventory, I was careful not to ask questions that are sensitive in nature, or could put the students in any sort of uncomfortable situation, while I also asked some candid questions to help me understand their personalities, likes, and dislikes better. I chose to start the questionnaire out with questions that are very specific to the content area of the course, by asking the first question, which is, what role would you say that music plays in your daily life? This allows students to really think about how music affects them and how music is used in their world on a day-to-day basis. I did break one of the rules I just said about asking yes or no questions, but this is a two-part question. I asked, do you play any instruments? And I want them to answer yes or no. And then, which instruments do you play? Did you learn through group learning, like was it in band, or did you take private lessons to learn that instrument? The next question is, have you ever been a member of a choir, either in school or through a church or other group? And if yes, please explain. That way I kind of have an idea if they have some sort of background other than what we have together. The next question is, what genre of music do you prefer to listen to in your free time? So this helps me to connect to their personal preferences. So I'm moving out of experience into personal. The next question is a fun question, and it requires a lot of thinking on their part. If you had to choose 20 songs to put on your iPod or MP3 player, and you couldn't add or change those 20 songs for 5 years, which songs would you choose? So, this one is really interesting because it's going to make them think about what songs they like well enough that they could listen to them over and over, and that helps me to understand them a little better as well. What is your opinion of classical music? And then the next part of this question says, please name 3 famous classical composers. This is kind of my way of prodding them to see if they can come up with some of the biggest names that I feel like most people should already know, like Beethoven, Bach, Mozart, those types of names. And if they can't answer the question, of course, there's no penalty for that. This is just to help me know where they are. The next question is, if you could meet one celebrity, dead or alive, who would you choose and why? This is a really interesting question, especially for a music appreciation class, but it really helps me, it helps me to understand where my students are in terms of interest as far as pop culture is concerned. I've asked this question to students in the past, and I had one student say Abraham Lincoln, and I had one student say T.I. So you get a wide range, and it just depends on what kind of students you have at the time. The next one is, what is the best thing about you? And I just threw in here, remember to be positive. We all have good qualities. Don't be hard on yourself. I have some students that really struggle to come up with something about themselves that's positive, that they like. And it's one of my goals to make sure that the students are never torn down in my class. I always want to build them up no matter what. Next one is, tell me 3 interesting things about yourself that I don't already know. What motivates you to do your best? And the last question is, if there is anything else you feel that I should know about having you in my class this quarter, please use this space to tell me. This is kind of their open forum. If they want to, tell me that they have seizures or something that I don't already know, which I guess if they had seizures, I would know that from their health packet that I get. But regardless, if there's something that I should know, this is their chance to tell me. And there's no recourse if they tell me something, that maybe they were scared to share otherwise. So now that we've kind of addressed the interest inventory, I want to talk a little bit about classroom management style and how I feel my management style fits into some of the models that we have studied in this course. There are a number of different classroom models that have been developed by different educational professionals over the course of many years of research. Many of the models have some similarities woven throughout, though the differences between them are marked enough to differentiate between them. I find that my classroom management style is closest to that described by Gnott and the character education models. I closely relate to Gnott in a couple of key areas. Gnott emphasizes that students can learn to be responsible and autonomous, and that promoting cooperation increases good discipline. I may not have the years of classroom experience that some teachers have, but I have found in my short experience that these 2 statements ring very true. I also relate to the character education model in that I firmly believe that strong character education is key to producing well-rounded children that are productive members of society later. Additionally, the character education model emphasizes intrinsic motivation as well as the importance of core ethical values. One thing, though, that reflection during this course has brought to my attention is deeper than just classroom management models. Excuse me. How we manage a classroom needs to be more proactive than reactive. My goal for this upcoming year is to be more proactive with my classroom management and less reactive. By planning smarter and knowing my students better, I will be better able to utilize the aspects of Gnott and the character education models that I find most important. One way to effectively manage the classroom, regardless of which classroom management model is in play, is to have clearly defined classroom rules and procedures. This is more complex, though, than just slapping a poster on the wall with some rules on it and expecting everyone to follow along. Rules must be basic and easy to understand, but most of all, they must be realistic and enforceable. Whatever form of consequence is decided upon, being consistent in implementing said consequence will be the key in helping to manage behavioral issues efficiently. Ideally, these rules will help to keep order within the classroom setting. The desired outcome of classroom rules is, after all, to keep order and establish a system of order. The rules that I use in my classroom are quite simple and are easy to follow. They're all rules that I've accumulated through my years of being a student, and the first rule is actually held by 3 other teachers in my district, so the students are no stranger to this rule in general. That rule is no rude, crude, or lewd behavior in my classroom. I also insist that you must be kind, always. We're all facing challenges, and there is no reason to exacerbate someone else's challenges by being unkind. My third rule is be responsible. One of the areas from Ganat's model that I really emphasize is the aspect of responsibility. I appreciate and expect my students to be responsible both for themselves and their belongings. Lastly, respect the teacher, your classmates, and your environment. Please do not touch the musical instruments without permission. This rule is really more common sense than anything. An expression from my middle school days, though, stands out to me, and it was a poster that was above the chalkboard in my middle school English teacher's classroom. It said, "If you expect respect, be the first to show it." I'll be adding that little statement to my comments to students on the first day of school as we prepare for this upcoming school year. In conclusion, as much as anything when it comes to classroom management, being consistent is key. It does not do anyone good to be rigid on everything and unwilling to adjust based on the circumstances around you. If your behavior management style doesn't fit into the mold of one of these particular models or one that we studied, it's all right to take key pieces from other models and fit them together to make a model that is unique and effective for the specific group of students that you are dealing with. In closing, I found a quote from Harry Wong that I found to be really interesting and very truthful for this class. It says, "An effective teacher manages a classroom, an ineffective teacher disciplines a classroom." I think it's very common to see teachers that just immediately jump to discipline when something goes wrong rather than trying to manage the situation and work it into a teachable moment that not just the student involved but others can learn from as well. So learning to manage that classroom rather than just using discipline as our knee-jerk response for everything is very important as teachers, and we must embrace that. Thank you very much for your time, and have a great evening.